Hello. Today I want to talk to you about what you can expect and how Illustrator should look. So Illustrator is a vector program, which means it makes vector graphics. These graphics are created by a series of points, line segments. Some of the points have handles, and these are called corners. Some of the points that do not have handles are called corners. Points that have handles, they're called smooth or smooth curved points. And then there are some points that have only one handle on one side and no handle on the other side. And this is kind of a hybrid of this, where one side is a corner and the other side is a smooth or curved point. So for example, if I were to click on this object here, and you can see if I click on this, for example, when I go to any of these and I click on them, you can see that, so I'm going to zoom in just to make this a little easier. You can see that there are two lines that are extending, and those two lines, so if you have something that looks like this, these two lines are called handles. So I can adjust these handles. In some instances, so this one would be a curved or smooth point. You have something like this that does not have any handles here, and this is called a corner point. So the way that Illustrator works is that you create a series of points, and between the points are line segments. And as you're kind of creating these line segments, you're able to go ahead and create these vector graphics here. So the way that you are to read this illustration here is, if I were to draw something like this, you can see that the corner has no handle, and then as it kind of goes over here, it has a corner on this side because there's no handle. But you can see that there's a handle that's been extended here in order to make this curve. This bottom point here has two handles here, so it is a smooth or curved point, and then comes up to this hybrid again where there's a smooth curved handle here, and then on this side of the point there is no handle, and then we come down or come out to a corner here. So that is the idea or the premises of a vector image. These are the parts that when we make things, that this is sort of the foundational understanding of Illustrator. There are lots of tools that allow us to do different things, but for the most part and the most basic understanding of Illustrator is that you're using points to create line segments, and the line segments can be controlled whether they're curved or straight based on if they have handles or not. So that's the first sort of thing that I'd like to show you here. Before we go into the next thing, one of the things I'd like to do is to, let's look at our preferences and make some adjustments to our preferences so that it will work best for us. So I'm gonna click on the Illustrator word up here, and I'm gonna go down to settings, and then I'm gonna click on general, and this menu comes up here. One of the things that I would strongly suggest, but is not required, I do think that it is helpful to click on scale, strokes, and effects. What this means is that if you don't have this clicked on, anytime that you scale something, the strokes and effects will not proportionally adjust. So for example, I'm gonna click off of this and I'm gonna click OK. And instead of touching this graphic here, I'm just gonna go to make a shape here. And you can see that when I make a shape here, there is a solid color, and then there is a stroke or a line segment here. I'm gonna adjust this line segment just to make it a little easier for us to see. And let's go ahead and just make it 7, okay? If I were to adjust this, okay, and I adjust it scale-wise to make it even larger, and then I click back on over here, you can see that it is stayed at 7 points regardless if I've actually changed the size. Let's go in and I'm going to change that to scale proportions. So I'm going to go back over to our general, and then I'm going to turn on the scale, strokes, and effects. And again, just so that we are looking at this, we have 7 points here. And then let me go ahead and enlarge this again. And when I enlarge it, you will see that now my points, or my stroke weight here, has proportionally enlarged so that my strokes and my effects are consistent with what I initially created. So I would strongly suggest that. I'm gonna go ahead and just delete that and then kind of get this back, and then let's go back to our Illustrator and then under General for settings here. All right, a couple of other things that we can look at here as far as setting this up the way that we want is that we can also go to show tooltips. So I do not have tooltips shown right now. So I'm going to click this on. So it may be default, it should be default on your computer to have show tooltips, and then select the show rich tooltips as well. And I'm actually going to suggest that we turn this off, but just for the purpose of this so we can see what they are. When I hover over a tool, you can see that it gives me this tooltip. It tells me what the name of the tool is, and I can actually learn more about this. And while I think this is very useful at the very beginning as you are starting to learn what the different tools are, this can be annoying every time you're trying to get to a tool. So I'm going to go to Illustrator and I'm going to go back over here to General, and I'm going to turn off Show Tooltips. I think this is helpful. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to our selection and anchor display. One of the things that students struggle with when they are working is that the points sometimes can be super small. So if I click on this and here, you can see that the points are small, and they're actually not as small as they are in the default. And sometimes it can be hard to select them, and it may be easier to see, especially at the very beginning as you're working, is to adjust the scale of this. So I'm going to come back down or over here, and I'm going to adjust this. So the default would have been much smaller, and then I'm going to, I wouldn't recommend max, but maybe going down to the next one here, and I'm going to press OK. And then you can see that these are a bit larger, and it's easier for us to see and easier for us to click on. So I would recommend changing that as well. Okay, once we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this file here. And I want to talk about how we can select objects here. So in a previous video, I showed you that you can zoom in and zoom out by not just pressing the Z key, which gets you to the zoom, but making or pressing Command plus or Command minus, Command 0, which makes it fit to the page, or Command 1, which makes it at 100%. All right, so let's talk about how we go about selecting our objects here. So you want to make sure that this very first tool here, so selection here, let me make sure I have turned this off. I might have accidentally, yes, press OK here. All right, the very first tool, first top left column of our toolbar is called a selection tool. And this selection tool allows us to click on the objects that we want to work on. Okay, when I click on this one right here, this cloud icon, you can see that it does not select it, but it selects everything else. The reason why that happens is that this particular shape does not have a fill color. It only has the stroke. And when we have just a stroke, you have to actually click on the stroke itself in order to select it. So when we have objects that have fill, we can go ahead and click anywhere and it will help us to select it. When it doesn't, we have to actually click on the path. Okay, that's the first thing here that I want to show you. The next thing I want to show you is the tool just to the right of this. So it's a filled in sort of cursor. I'm going to click on this like this. And when I click on the direct selection tool, this will not only just show me sort of the selection of the object, but it will now identify and show me all the individual points that made up this shape here. So anytime that we want to make adjustments and we need to see these points, to make adjustments, we need to make sure that we're using our direct selection tool. And this will help us to see the points here to make these adjustments. Okay, so say that I want to select them and I don't necessarily want to select each individual one. So I'm going to go back to the selection tool. I don't want to go in and select. If I want to select more than one, all I have to do is hold down the shift key, and as I'm holding down the shift key, I can go through and select my individual objects like this. Say that I have selected these three and I really just don't need this gear shape. So I'm going to press shift again, I'm going to click again, and it deselects it. And this is super useful and helpful when you need to select a bunch of things. Say that you have some things that are overlapping and you don't want to go through and click them. You can draw, so if you take your selection tool and you just draw sort of an invisible marquee like this, it will then select everything that you have just drawn over. Okay, so I can do that here, for example, as long as it's touching something. You can see that it got this spade here and this cloud. Okay, so that would be another way that you can select something besides going through and individually selecting them, is that you can draw a marquee over the objects that you want to select, and this will help you to grab a bunch of things all at once. All right, let's talk about this tool that's called a magic wand. And this is a tool that's just below the selection tool right here. So it's just below on the left-hand side. I'm gonna select that. Now, the way that this tool works is I can select things like this, right? So here's one way. But say that I wanted to select something that that was more finite, right? So I might actually go through, and if I can double click on this like this, or I can, when the tool is selected, I can just press the return key and the same dialog box comes up, and this gives me more information. So say that, so I don't have any other sort of yellow, but say that I had this is the same color as this. So for example, which I'll show you how I just did that, it was like magic, right? If I want to select something that has the same color and the same stroke, I can adjust the tolerance. So right now it's at 32, but say that I have it at 10, and then I click on this, it will only select this because it is not the same. If I increase this to 50%, and then I click on this, or if I go up to 100, for example, changing the tolerance should allow me to select anything. So do you see how this picked up not only this, the gear, and this? That's because it's not just looking for the color, it's actually looking for the opacity and the transparency as well. So you can look for these individually, but 100 is quite a large tolerance. So let's go back down to 10, and I'm going to click off to deselect. Also, deselecting, you can deselect always by pressing Shift Command A. So if you can see that at 10, the tolerance of 10, it picks up these two colors perfectly. So if you do Shift Command A, it will deselect the icons that I had just selected. You can do this by going through and clicking any of these or all of them in order to select something that is similar in your artboard itself. All right, I'm gonna click and close this out here. Another thing that I would like to show you is, say that you want to create a selection. So say that you have something that's pretty complex. This by far is not complex at all, but say that I want to select this sort of sun icon, the gear, and the spade here. I can select all of these. Say if it was a difficult sort of selection, I can go up to the select menu at the top here, and I can go and create a saved selection. So I'm going to create a save selection, and I'm just going to name this demo just so we can see what this looks like. So I click off of it, I'm doing something else, and I want to go back and select just those things. I can always come back up to select, and you can see at the bottom of this menu that the demo, right, comes up and it selects it again. You can also say that I move something around, right, like this, but I still just want those things that I had initially selected. I can still go up to select and go to demo, And regardless of where I move them, they are still being selected, which is a really nice feature if you have something that is a complex selection. All right, another thing that you can do before we move on from selections here, so I'm just going to move these sort of things back here, is that if you go up to your selection menu here, we can select through two ways. We can do select here by appearance, blending mode. So there's all these different ways. We can also select type if we had a similar typeface or a font family. For example, I'm just going to use the stroke color. And once it does that, you can see that just the orange here has been selected. If I have black here, so I've clicked the cloud and I go back to same and I do stroke color, it will pick up only the odd items that have the black stroke here. So this is another great way for you to select similar things. You can also select objects as well. So this is a good way to select here. And then I also want to show you, this was another example where we can use our magic wand, where we can go through here and select different variations. So I have a star here that is kind of fat and chunky, and then it goes down to a leaner, sharper star. And again, I can use my magic wand, and when I use my magic wand, I can go in and select different things here. Because I don't know what the setting is, and I just clicked on this, you can see that it picked up the first three. So do you remember how to open the dialog box? You can either double click on the tool, or you can have the tool selected and then press return. All right, let's change the tolerance to 40. And then I'm going to deselect, which is Shift Command A. Okay, deselect like this, and then I'm going to click on this and let's see. Oh, look, it selected everything because a tolerance of 40 is pretty great. Okay, so again, this would be one way for you to select things. Let's do, let's see what it would look like if I do 80% or 80 and click off, and then I click on this. And you see how it's now picking up some of the kind of pinkish magenta stars down here, and it's because it's picking up a field or a range that is 80%, which is really, really large. Anyways, this is a good way for you to use the magic wand in order to select similar things, depending on how similar or not similar you want. Okay. And then the last thing I want to show in this video here is the shape tools. So the shape tool is the fifth one down here. By default is generally the rectangle here. One of the things I want to show you too is anytime you have a tool that has a little arrow like right here, you know that there are other tools nested. So if I click and hold, you can see that I have a variety of tools in this one tool. Okay, so I've nested it. And then once I've clicked on it and I've opened or expanded this particular tool, nested tool, has this little bar here that has an arrow. If I click on that, it allows me to have this toolbox that comes up where I can easily sort of adjust or move around the individual tools here. So I can select different tools under the shape tool here, and it will not get rid of anything. If I just click on the X, it will get rid of it, but it doesn't get rid of the tools that are in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to just draw out some shapes. We can use the dots that I have here in order to create our shape. So the first one is that we can do is just do a rectangle. So I can go over this top left dot, I'm going to click and then drag out over the dots, all these pink dots. And this just makes a square. Okay. I can also, if I can just delete that. If I go back to the rectangle, if I hold down the Option key, do you see how when I hold down the Option key, it changes the cursor? The cursor here will tell me that it will start to draw from the center. And as I draw from the center, okay, I'm holding down the Option key, And say that so I can like make this one over the blue, for example, like this. So I just draw from the center like this. I can also, if I go to draw from here and from the center, say that I want it to be a perfect square. In addition to holding the Option key, I can hold down the Shift key, and this will make it a perfect square, okay? And then say that I don't have this lined up exactly the way I want. If I hold the space bar, I can actually move this around without sort of adjusting or changing anything. So for example, I have the 3 keys held down, plus I'm holding down the mouse. So I have Shift, Option, and the space bar. Anywhere that I lift up on the space bar, for example, it stops moving, okay? I wanna make sure that I don't lift up on any of these keys until after I've released the mouse, okay? So Shift will allow me to hold it to make it perfect. Option will allow me to draw from the center. And then the space bar I can always use while I'm working in the tool itself. All right, we have the rectangular tool. The next one is a rounded rectangular tool. So for example, if I just click and draw, you can see that it has a rounded edge here. Now, when you draw a shape, and it's a closed shape, which means it's not open-ended, you will see that you have these little like dots here, and this makes it so that you have more or less of a curve along the edges here. So if I click and drag this inwards, I can make this like a pill shape, or I can bring this back out and make it really tight where it's just a subtle, very small sort of curve on the edge here. So that is one thing that you should know, but you have a curved corner rectangle tool here. All right, the next one is an ellipse. The ellipse will work the same way, where I just click on this, right, and I can drag out. And when I'm just doing this, you can see that I can make it any shape that I want. As soon as I hold down the Shift key, it makes it a perfect circle, okay? And you can see that I'm lining up perfect like this over the line. And again, if I want to move it, I hold down the space bar, and then I can move it around as needed as well, okay? So you have lots of things there. You can also, so you saw this little handle. So in this marquee here, there's a little handle here, and this will allow me to adjust this. So if I want to open this up like this, this will make it so that my shape is no longer a perfect circle, but I'm able to modify this. The only way to go back in and modify this, let's see, it's not letting me. So once you release it, you cannot modify this. Oh, actually you can. I don't usually use this tool, so it's neat to know that that is something that you can do. All right, so look for these handles that happen on the outside. This is a great way to make adjustments to this shape. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this one. The next one here is I think it's called a polygonal. And if I'm just gonna draw the shape here like this, let's get this kind of in the center. Again, it's the same thing. If you hold down the Option key, this is always drawn in from the center, so the Option key here will not do anything. So it's always drawn from the center. You can hold down the Shift key. It locks it in place and changes its orientation. I can also, if I hold or click on the arrow keys going up and down, I can increase the number of sides or reduce the number of sides. I can also, when I click off of it, okay, I can also look for a handle here that will allow me to adjust. I'm going to change the scale a little bit so I can see this a bit better. And actually, I'm going to rotate this real quick so I can see this a bit better. All right. So let's see. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let me go back here and click on that. And I should have it does not look like I have a handle. There used to be a handle here. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the handle, I almost always look for the handle over here, but I must have went and I rotated it. You can now use this sort of widget to allow you to increase or decrease the sides as well. So If you don't remember to use the up and down keys as you're making the shape, you can always use this little handle or widget in order to adjust the number of sides. All right, I'm going to delete that one. And then the last one is the star. So you can draw the star like this, for example. I'm going to just move it around over to the side. I'm going to lock it in place and just sort of kind of adjust it by holding down the space bar. And I'm just going to fill this in a little bit so that it's touching that. Perfect. And you can see that this one has a widget here where you can increase the sides or the number of points here. You can also do that by using the up and down keys as you're drawing it. One of the other things that's really nice about this tool is that it allows you to make adjustments to the depth. So I can extend this out like this, but I can also, if I'm looking for this handle, do you see if I hover over it, it has this like blue circle? I can come in here and click and hold, and I can adjust how deep I want my points to be. So I can make some adjustments like this. I think that's can be super helpful. Also, there has another one up here which will allow me to also adjust the length of these points as well. So there are some ways in order to play around and make very unique stars. All right, I'm gonna delete that. The last tool in here is a flare tool, and this tool is really outdated, and you won't see anyone using it because, like I said, it's outdated and it doesn't function very well in the updated releases. So I'm just going to show you between the rectangle and the star. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and I will close out of these files. We do not need to save right now, and that will conclude this particular session today.